the turn of the 20th century, America's gayest, most exciting music was called ragtime. It turned the restless energy and will of America into a national folk expression. Joplin was the first to compose folk tunes into the clear measure of serious musical form. African music was highly sophisticated in its use of polyrhythms. Denied the use of drums in America, blacks kept this quality of rhythm in field hollers and work songs.
For the world and for you and for me.
Fusing European harmonies with African rhythms, blacks created a music of strong pulse and rhythmic drive. After the Civil War, river cities became centers of musical development for blacks. Riverboats brought mobility, enabling blacks to move onto the stage in early minstrel shows. With the turn of the century, many musicians worked sporting houses of the red light district, the only place their music was accepted.
Here you go, look at it. Call, rain, up, I see all that.
The Maple Leaf Club gives you Master Scott Joplin.
Oh, man, there goes the rent.
Who's he?
Oh, that's the music publisher.
John Stark was a local music publisher. He dropped by the club to hear Joplin play, the new form of music, the rag. He was overwhelmed by the freshness and quality of the music.
Joplin, is that your piece? I call it The Entertainer. Here's my card. Why don't you drop by my office
The next day, Joplin and a small friend stopped by John Stark's office to play a new composition, the Maple Leaf Rag. Stark listened to an innovation in American music, syncopation, which stressed the rhythm of accent on the upbeat against irregularly accented bass. John Stark was so impressed that he bought the piece for $50 plus royalties. It was the first time a royalty contract had been made between a publisher and a composer. It was the first instrumental to top the million mark in sales of sheet music. The Maple Leaf made Scott Joplin the king of ragtime composers. Stark and Joplin became close friends while continuing a profitable business relationship. Joplin lived in the Midwest Railroad center of Sedalia, Missouri. Young Scott enjoyed an intensely musical home life, taking up piano at age 7. By 11, a local German piano teacher offered him free instruction. Tutored in the classics in his youth, Joplin studied composition and harmony at Smith College. Joplin's father was an ex-slave from North Carolina His mother was born in Kentucky.
All right, Captain, one line back. Oh, right there. Get the big ball.
Joplin left home at 14, working as an itinerant pianist throughout Texas, Louisiana, and the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys, where folk ragtime was being born. Civil War songs, plantation melodies, jigs and reels, country dances, ballads, hollers, and work songs provided a source of inspiration to Joplin. The cakewalk, the flamboyant dance, was a takeoff on the high manners of the white folks in the plantation estates. Joplin was influenced by two popular dances, the cakewalk and the two-step, classicizing them into ragtime form, much as Mozart had done for the minuet and Brahms for the waltz. In 1896, the cakewalk leapt into the national spotlight and was adopted by fashionable white society. Riding in on the cakewalk, ragtime was an overnight national sensation, creating that period of American culture called the Gay Night. Europe, too, fell under the syncopated spell when John Philip Sousa's band toured the continent. Soon, the French were cakewalking to Le Temps du Chiffon. The World's Fair of 1904 was held in St. Louis.
You boys join the party and act the same way I'd expect you to act in a football game. Don't flinch, don't foul, and hit the line hard.
Joplin composed the Cascades in honor of the vast number of waterfalls and fountains on the main concourse. Segregated and far from the concourse with his people, Joplin realized theirs was a far different story. He had a vision: to tell the story of his people and expand ragtime into a more serious musical form, opera. Meanwhile, Stark had opened a successful new office in St. Louis. Joplin told him of his idea. Stark was uncertain of the financial prospect for such a venture. In 1907, Joplin followed Stark to New York. Joplin now began a drive for ragtime classicism. His royalty arrangements allowed him to establish a new life, teaching and composing at home with his wife, Lottie. Joplin composed an opera, Tremonisha. The theme he envisioned lifted the American blacks to enlightenment through education. Meanwhile, Tin Pan Alley imitators copied his music. Competition became stiff as publishers, including Stark, were no longer willing to give royalties. In 1909, Joplin and Stark had a falling out. Stark saw no market for Joplin's new opera.
John, I never thought you'd turn against me.
Joplin did publish Tremonisha himself. He spent all of his money staging a rehearsal for potential backers, but they were not ready for it. Blacks could not relate to the opera form, and the whites could not identify with the story message. audiences finally tired of all the bad Tin Pan Alley imitations to the point where even Joplin could not sell his serious rags. Time was against Joplin. He was to die at 48 from advanced stages of a disease contracted in his youth. In 1917, destroyed emotionally and physically, Joplin died, not realizing that 60 years later, his opera, Tremonisha, was to come alive in 1975. A conjurer man uses power to keep knowledge and self-thinking from the people. Tremonisha, Joplin's heroine, banishes evil and superstition through an education bringing enlightenment to all. The spirit of Scott Joplin lives on. Growing recognition of black cultural contribution to our country has renewed interest in the history of ragtime and its greatest genius, Scott Joplin.